put in the work now. It's going to pay off. Stay late, take that bottle, do that blow dry, come in early. If you take yourself seriously, other people will take you seriously. Show up prepared, show up with the right tools, show up on time. Those things matter. And it just really, you have to be willing to put in the work, because I guarantee you, if you put in the work, it comes back to you. That's just how it works. There's no magic. You get what you give. I think in most things, I think that that's sort of true.
Hello, everyone. Today we've got hairstylist Jennifer Nast from...
Hello.
Tell me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I always say Sharon Durham.
Yes, it's Sharon Durham at Sally Hirschberger Salon.
At Sally Hirschberger Salon. Okay. So I always just called it one or the other, but I kind of messed it up all the time. So when I lived in New York, I would go and see Jennifer to get my hair done. And it's a real pleasure to have you on, because it reminds me of my home back in New York. And it's just always fun to kind of think about things like looking after yourself, think about hairstyles. I think it's exciting, and have some fun questions for you. And one thing I have to say about Jennifer is that I would kind of be self-conscious, because it's a bit of a fancy salon, and I think like, oh gosh, I'm just kind of very casual about my hair. And she just puts you at ease. So Jennifer just said, I have people who come in and see me once a year to get their hair cut. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. And so I just always felt at home, and in, good hands with Jennifer. So thank you always for that.
That makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah. It's always a very nice experience and relaxing. So maybe you want to introduce yourself in terms of, your background, how you became a stylist, and what it took to get to where you are now.
I sort of was at a crossroad. I had sort of done a few things that I knew weren't for me. And so I had to kind of go back to the beginning and start over. And so when I looked at what my options were, I think the hair industry felt in my wheelhouse. I can think back to cutting friends' hair and doing someone's hair and makeup for prom. It just was something that just came very natural to me. So when I looked at starting a new career, I felt like this is maybe something I would enjoy. And when you're sort of completely changing directions, I wanted to make sure that it was something that I really wanted to go to every day and that I was eager to be a part of. And so I took a chance and I did some research and found what was the best hair salon in New York, the best hair school in New York City. And I applied. It was the Aveda Salon, the Aveda Academy in Soho. And once I got finished there, I knew I just wanted to work at the best hair salon. So I really just looked at, Sally Hirschberger had this huge name, and she had some amazing colorists and stylists working, some of the best in New York City. So when you see that, something good is happening there.
Yeah.
And she was also offering continued education, which was so important, because I still had so much to learn. And so I started at the salon uptown, and I just put all of my energy into getting better and trying to be the best that I could possibly be. And I think too, because it was a bit of a second career for me, kind of. I was a little older than a lot of people that I had gone to hair school with.
Yeah.
I was more motivated. So I was really just every class I could take. I was watching hair videos online. I was cutting everyone who would let me cut their hair. It was just come to my kitchen and I'll cut your hair for, $20. It was just anybody who would let me cut their hair. And I think ultimately that's really what you have to do. You just have to put yourself in it 100%. I think Malcolm Gladwell made that comment about 10,000 hours makes you a master. So that was sort of my mentality, was I knew I wanted to get to being on the floor and taking clients. So put all my energy into it.
Yeah. Cool. That's neat to know. It's neat to know you had a graphics design background. What did you kind of specialize in, or what was your interest in the graphic design
Well,
world?
it was actually, I think, not to date myself too much, but graphic design was moving from the typeset into the computer age.
Yeah.
So I think everybody was very excited about this
Yeah.
new career path for a lot of people.
Oh, okay.
So I started off as a fine art major, and
Okay.
a lot of my professors were like, hey, your work is very graphic. I think maybe you would do really well in graphic design. And I decided to change majors into graphic design, and I have to say it was probably not a good change. I think the disconnect from using my hands to using the computer was, I think, it just wasn't for me. I just didn't feel as creative. So I did wind up finishing with a bachelor's degree in graphic design.
Right.
But I never really wound up.
You miss the physicality.
For sure.
Yeah, it's always the interesting part about art. What kind of art were you painting or drawing or sculpture?
So, yeah, I mean, pretty much everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I would say a lot of painting, a lot of drawing, printmaking.
Yeah.
I love printmaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, sculpture.
Yeah.
And I did do some photography, which at the time I sort of loved, but I didn't really pursue. Yeah. But
But you do now, because I
do.
I think your Instagram, right?
I do.
I remember when we had our conversation the last time. Yeah.
Yeah. I had taken a photography course, a black and white film photography course a few years ago. And I think from being away from art, which I wasn't really doing the past, 10 years, 20 years, probably.
Yeah.
I maybe did a few paintings here and there, but nothing consistent. And I finally took that course, and it was just like mind blowing just to be back in a classroom where you're critiquing, you're looking at artists, and just, it felt so good to be back in that world, because I spent so much of my life in that world. So it was just so nice. And then I think also just finding my love again for photography, and then it just sort of took off from there. And now definitely amateur photographer, but big
active.
part of my life. Yeah, exactly. It's a much bigger part of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nice. Oh, this is so nice to get to know you on this level, because when you're getting your hair done, you get a little bits and pieces, but this is really cool. Do you have, like, from a hairstylist standpoint, do you have any inspirations, like, anybody in history, or, was there a moment when you were like, wow, I didn't know you could, when you suddenly saw hair as, an art form?
It's funny, because I think what really surprised me about hair was that it was such a connection with people. That was really the thing that amazed me the most. It was such a technical thing in the beginning, and it was just learning how to do things properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you sort of got that technical part of it, and you could relax and really kind of come into the moment of doing hair, I found it was the one-on-one connection that I was making with every client that came in. And it was more about just making them feel good, and that I had a small part in that they were leaving and they were feeling good about how they looked. And hopefully they were going out in the world and spreading that good feeling out there. So I think that was the biggest moment for me, was more about being able to affect people in a positive way.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So, I mean, it kind of answers my next question, which is, when someone comes to see you, what's your goal? You want to make them feel good. But in terms of, the process of getting to, because God knows I've tried a million different hairstyles. And a lot of times I'll just say, I'll show a picture or something and people say, you kind of need to be more aware of your face type. You don't, that's, and kind of do achieve the idea, but according to the person. So, what's your process of kind of getting to a great cut for somebody?
So I think a lot of it does have to do with consistency. I think when I first have a client sit down and they're new, it's really just the consultation. It's talking to them about their lifestyle, talking to them about how often they get it cut. And then usually my first haircut is going to probably be more on the conservative side, just because we're getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And what I don't want to do is have something that you're not going to be able to replicate at home, or
right.
that's going to give you trouble, because that's not going to do for a good haircut if you can't handle it yourself at home.
Right.
So it's a bit of like building that relationship to know what you're capable of doing, and then educating you on ways to style your hair. So it's really just, consistency. It's relationship building. I don't really focus too much on like face shape and things like that, because I think we've really found that sometimes things just work and there's no rhyme or reason. You have these, you shouldn't have your hair short. You shouldn't have it long. When you get older, you shouldn't have your hair long. I just don't believe in those things. I don't think that they really hold much weight now.
Okay.
I sort of see it as all of these moving parts, and you kind of find the balance with all of these moving parts.
Right.
Yeah. So, and sometimes that just takes time to get there. But it's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of investigating, like what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But it's consistency. So I think staying with a hairstylist is really important. At least staying with them for several appointments, because I even find sometimes I'm working with a haircut that someone else did, and it may take 2 to 3 haircuts before it's really my haircut. If someone has a lot of layers or we're growing out.
Gotcha.
So it may take a few haircuts before it really gets to their haircut. So sometimes I find when you go to one person and you don't like them, then you go to another person. You kind of just get in this cycle of the next person fixing the next thing.
Yes.
So I always just advise people to really do your homework, find a stylist that is from a reputable salon that has good reviews, and then have a consultation and see if your energies vibe, because that's huge too. And then once you find that person, try to stick with them for a little while. And a good hairstylist really should be willing to give you that kind of time and invest in you, because ultimately, I just think I want you to be my client forever. So I'm going to invest this time so that we have the best experience possible. And we're ultimately partners,
Yeah.
I need this information from you so that I can give you what you need. And I'm not going to put my style on you. I'm not going to force you to have a haircut that I think you should have. It's going to be a partnership. I'll definitely give my advice, but ultimately I think a client should look how they want to look. They're going to feel the best.
Right. Oh, that's really cool. If you haven't already kind of said it, I think, what do you love the most about your craft?
Yeah. I mean, I think I tend to do really well, like one-on-one. So it just ultimately has been this like building of friendships. A lot of my clients, I do feel genuine friendship, and, we really open up to each other. It feels like a very safe space to be open and vulnerable. So, but also just, again, I think I did say it before, I think it's just giving people a chance to just really feel good and feel beautiful.
Feel good about themselves.
I have a friend of mine who always sort of had mid-length hair and always wore it in a ponytail. and she
Mhm.
showed up with this photo of Ruby Rose. And I was like, whoa, that's, that's short.
Yeah,
And she was like, yeah, I think I want to
I want to
just
try it.
chop it off. And I'm pretty conservative. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want you to not be my friend anymore. So let's just slowly work our way up to it. And so we really took our time and, sort of went shorter and shorter. And she was like, you know what, let's just do it. I'm here for it. And we did it. And I think seeing the actual change in her energy was just so amazing. It was like this awakening. She all of a sudden you could just feel her just feeling really good about how she looked. And when you
Hmm.
look back, you just think, and I say this to her to this day, it's like, you were meant to have this haircut. Like it just changed so much for her. I think it just gave her tons of confidence, which she really didn't have before. Um, that's just so crazy that I get to be a part of that. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm just thinking about one of my school friends, Carol. She just always kind of had, kind of wavy hair to here. And then I think it was like second year college or something like that. All of a sudden she just showed up. We were going out night on the town and she had a pixie cut. And
Wow.
it was like, yeah, it was. It was like, wow. And her sister just said, it's the cheekbones. And she totally, to this day, she still has this hairdo because she's
Wow.
just got those cheekbones that she can, and yeah, it's really cool when I just remember that moment. So, whereas I like cut my hair and then let it grow and then never know quite what I want to do with it. I just like change. I like
Yeah,
change. So, and the hair is like the one thing that you can really do that with because it grows back, thankfully.
totally.
So, do you look back at kind of like, like a Vidal Sassoon who was like very structural in the haircuts or something like that? Like, I'm sure you probably look at in the education process, at various kind of iconic hairstylists or at least haircuts and stuff like that. Do you have anything that, you think, oh, that was, I really kind of take inspiration from that person or is it?
I think, it's interesting because I think my education process was not very structured as far as like when you look back at, Tony and Guy or Vidal Sassoon, where there are these
Mhm.
very strong technical haircuts. I think for a long time, I really felt like I was at a disadvantage because I didn't have that strong technical background.
Right.
But I think as I've moved on in my career, I actually understand that there is something to not having that structure because you're not so glued into this technical haircut for everyone because
Right.
ultimately every person is a custom haircut. I'm not
Yes.
ever doing the same haircut on the same
Right.
person. It's really super custom. So I think it actually has worked probably better to not have that. Um,
Right. Because like, I think it's kind of like you're going to try and achieve the same effect kind of thing that those stylists were striving for on like everybody that comes in. But there's a much bigger world out there
totally.
than, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
interesting.
so just the way that I approach every person as an
Yeah.
individual who's getting this specific haircut for them. I'm not going to be using
Yes.
that same haircut on everyone who wants a short haircut gets this type of haircut or these type of
Yeah.
layering. I'm really giving them maybe different layers from the front portion of their head to the back portion of their head. It could be different.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I think it just has made for a better, more custom haircut for people.
Sure. Sure. Any notable stories about fixing mishaps? Like I always say, like people cutting their own bangs or trimming their own bangs. Guilty and guilty.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I think bangs are just something that need a lot of pruning and a lot of upkeep. So people tend to take that into their own hands. If you can avoid it, I would say try to avoid it. Most hairstylists do a bang trim, which is usually
Hmm.
complimentary, and
Right.
take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And really, it's nice and easy. You can book it ahead of time, so you have it on your schedule. So it's really easy
Right.
to upkeep. But
Yes.
yes, recently, I would say maybe last year, I had a young fashion student come in, and you usually find that people who are creative are usually pretty good with hair cutting can be intuitive. So, but in this case, she had extremely thick hair, and a couple of other things. You know, she had a shorter forehead, and she really brought everything forward to do a curtain bang, which left the underneath very, very short. So she wound up having like micro bangs.
Oh.
Yeah. So when she came in, she was just, please
Oh.
help.
Yes.
And I tried my best to thin them out to make them the best
Yes.
possible, but, you just have to grow it out. So my
Yeah.
advice is really don't do it, but if you have to do it, just remember small bits at a time. Small bits and check, small bits and check. Nothing, you shouldn't be ever cutting too much hair off at once.
Right. Oh man, I'm sure you've seen a lot of good stories. Do you think so? When I was trying to think of, I look back, my parents watch a lot of like the old Perry Mason TV shows, and
Mm-hmm.
we see the differences, like when it's like in the 50s, kind of, or set in the early 60s or something, that the hairstyle on Della Reese compared to like the 60s when you start to get the beehive and and I think, like, in my opinion, is it like this, the 1960s, like kind of more with the hippie movement, and then the 70s, hair started to get a little bit more relaxed, I would think, in terms of the hairstyles and like, like specific haircuts and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
think, the technology's kind of, come up for hair coloring. I think hair coloring is fairly recent, that's something that you can do to change your hair without having to cut it. But yeah, would you agree with that, or do you?
So I think, even with clothes, right? So you see this parallel between the hair and clothes where
Yeah.
over time we've just gotten much more natural, much more casual. So I think the hair
Yeah.
has sort of followed suit with the
Yeah.
fashion becoming a little more casual,
Right.
and a little more relaxed. Um, yeah, absolutely. You saw this progression through, the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Right.
The
And then
80s,
just to
which was a bit of
grunge
a
where,
weird blip where it was the perm era. And,
yeah.
but then once we had past that moment, it was, I would say like, yeah, the 90s was sort of straight. Everything was very sort of straight. Um, and then it just became like a little more undone. It was less, you know, less done, less print, less hair cutting, less, um, yeah, just a little more sort of undone. And then when we
Yeah.
got into the 2000s, I think we got back into like, a little more, we got a little more styled. Like we got a lot of braids, we got a lot of like slick back moments. And then I think like 2010, we started getting like this wavy. It was all about the curling iron. It was like
Mm-hmm.
waves everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think now we're sort of seeing this getting away from the curling iron and getting more into a very soft, undone look again. Yeah. So I think it ebbs and flows, but I think we are on the side of undone. And I think, there's a few stylists that recently came out with hair theory, and they were looking at, you know, um, stars from the 50s and the 60s, and they were superimposing long hair on them, and they were looking vastly younger, 20 years younger. I think one of the main ones was, the housekeeper Alice from the Brady Bunch. They put a straight wig on her and she looks 20 years younger.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
then they also took modern celebrities and superimposed 50s styles, which were short and very coiffed. And they look 20 years older. So
Okay.
I think that that just sort of shows you that hairstyling definitely can age you. And so I don't think that we'll ever go back to sort of that type of
Right.
overly styled, because I think it can be aging for sure.
Yes. And
And
people
no one
don't
wants that.
really want to age. No,
Yeah. No
nobody,
one wants
you
that.
know, I think I was watching, oh shoot, It's a Wonderful Life, the old
Hmm.
movie with Jimmy Stewart and I can't remember what I thought, or what I said, but I think the girl, Donna Reed, she was supposed to be 23 or something, or 22. But I said something like, well, they look very mature though, like they're like the hair is all kind of done in the clothing. And my dad just said, at one point people did want to look older,
Yes.
and, they wanted to look more mature to be able to, I guess, just say like, I'm a responsible person. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but, now it's like, we just want to, just be both, and be able to look young. So
And
that's interesting.
I have to agree with that, because, you think about, say, even in the 50s, children were sort of away from no
Yes.
one really paid attention to what children wanted or
Right.
needed. And so I think that when you were 16, you were trying to look 20, you were trying to look 25. So, having your hair done and being very pulled
Right.
together gave you that, I can have a seat at the table. And,
Yes.
and now that we've sort of become such a kid-centric sort of,
Nobody wants to be an
nobody
adult
wants
anymore.
to,
They want,
the
I mean,
21-year-olds are trying to look 16, it's like, we want to go back. Let's take me back.
that's so funny. Oh, that's good. So, what would you give, as advice to any aspiring hairstylists coming up?
I would say just put in the work now, and it's going to pay off. Um, stay late, take that model,
Yeah.
do that blow dry, come in early. If you take yourself seriously, other people will take you seriously. Show up prepared, show up with the right tools, show up on time. Those
Yeah.
things matter, and it just really, you have to be willing to put in the work. Because I guarantee you, if you put in the work, it comes back to you. That's just how it works. There's no magic. You get what you give. I
Mm-hmm.
think in most things, I think that that's
Now,
sort of true.
is there like,
Yeah.
I imagine there's a preference to do kind of steady work at a salon versus, do you like runway work, like fashion show work, or like, what's the difference, do you find? Cause I figured one would be very hectic or something.
So
Yeah.
for sure. So when I first started my career, I think that feels
Yeah.
very exciting, and there is sort of a want to do those things. And I did dabble a little bit in Fashion Week and doing fashion shows, doing some
Mm-hmm.
some photo work for magazines. It is very fun, but it is sporadic, and you really do have to, sometimes you have to sort of
Okay.
choose one or the other. It's hard to really have a consistent schedule at a salon, and then you may get a call and say, oh, we need you Thursday for an all day photo shoot. And now you have
Mm-hmm.
to cancel your whole day of clients. And I have some clients who have seen editorial stylist, and that has happened to them over and over and over again. And they get to a point where they say, okay, I need some
Okay.
more consistency here. So they may find a different hairstylist. So, but I have a friend who does celebrity, she does
Mm-hmm.
editorial, she does photo shoots, solely,
Yeah.
and she loves it. And she loves the energy,
Yeah.
and she loves moving around and meeting people and being social. And
Okay.
it really works for her. But I think for me, yeah, it is a big difference. For me, I liked the consistency of coming in every day, knowing what my day looked like, knowing
Yeah.
where I was going to be working and what I was going to be doing. I needed that sort of calm
Yep.
space to really work. So it didn't vibe for me, although it's
Sure.
fun every once in a while, if I get to
Yeah.
do that. But yeah,
You
I think you
choose.
do have to
Yeah.
sort of, you have to
Yeah.
kind of pick and
Yeah.
choose, I think. Yeah.
Um, do you have, run us through kind of the tools that you have? Like, how many pairs of scissors do you typically, use on a haircut or, that you have? Yeah. I'm just curious about what kind of tools.
So, I have a few pairs of shears, but I definitely, when I like a pair of shears, I really sort of
Yeah.
only really use that pair of shears. There's a few other tools like a thinning
Yeah.
shear and a razor. Um, but I'm also, I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to my tools. I like to have lots of
Yeah.
brushes to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of irons
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
lots of combs,
Yeah.
lots of products. I'm really,
Yeah.
I like to be prepared and I like to have the tools
Sure.
that you need for the
And there's so
job.
many out
So
there.
yeah,
I get like, okay, what should I be using to shampoo? Should I be using conditioner or conditioning shampoo or, or leave-in conditioner or something like that? Where are we with all that? Is it like
it's a funny because I think about this all the time because clients constantly asking for recommendations and is it really worth it to spend $70 on this shampoo? Is it really worth it? Um, and I would say for most people, these products are
okay.
not going to be life changing. They sell you, they sell you that this product is
Right.
going to be everything that you've ever wanted and dreamed of. So a lot of it
Mm-hmm.
is really just, it's marketing. And they're trying to get you
Sure.
to buy this
Yeah.
product, even though you don't need it. And I think that they do prey on
Sure.
our
Wanting to
weakness,
look beautiful and shiny
I
hair
think
and
it's,
this. Oh,
oh,
sure.
of
This is
course.
going to make me
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly.
I don't have to
Sign
do
me up.
anything else other than
Exactly.
put this in. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done. Sign me up. Um, yeah, so I would say most of the time, yeah, unless you have a specific issue,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
experiencing a lot of damage, if you're
Yeah.
experiencing damage from hair color, um, then maybe there's
Yeah.
some things that really, you
Yeah.
should be using. But other than
Yeah,
that,
no,
yeah.
sometimes I really switch back and forth to like buying the expensive stuff to
Hmm.
buying the cheap stuff. Cause I go, oh, my hair's fine. I don't really, but you
Yeah,
notice, like I notice in my hair, like pretty fast, like, okay, the difference between them, but it's kind of like, it's kind of like a skincare routine too. There's a million different products that you can use for the morning, the nighttime, during the day and this and that, it's just kind of like, well, what's the acceptable middle of the road kind of thing. And it does come down also to skin type and hair type, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people are, if you tend to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oil producing, where like you need to be probably shampooing a little more often than somebody
Okay.
who's dry. And if that person that's dry is getting a highlight where
Right.
they're also dry, um, they may, be able to get away with a week without shampooing, where someone who's oil producing would say, oh my God, by
This is,
5 o'clock, I'm feeling like
yeah,
I need to
I
wash my
feel like I
hair.
could be a twice a day, hair washer. Cause it's just like, it becomes like this oil slick. I have a friend who just says, try and like not wash your hair so much because it's oily because you do wash your hair so much. And
Right. So that is a theory that they say that if you're over shampooing, basically your scalp is saying, uh-oh,
yeah,
we need to produce more oil. So the theory is if you shampoo
yeah.
less, your scalp will get conditioned to, I don't know. I tell everyone you really
Okay.
have to try everything. You have
Yeah.
to find out what works for you
And what you're
because
comfortable with.
yeah,
Cause I
it's a
just feel
lot of
like if
trial
I
and
don't
error.
shower my hair every
Yeah.
day, I'm tired all day. Like yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like 3 o'clock. Why am I so sluggish? And I think, oh yeah, I didn't wash my hair today.
Yeah.
So, um,
And I think it really does affect, I mean, how our hair looks, I
Yeah.
think does affect
Yes.
how we feel. It's sort of crazy. I think anyone
Yeah.
who's had a bad haircut has felt that, you just cannot seem to feel good about yourself when your hair doesn't look how you want it to look. So yeah, I think if your hair is dirty, somehow you just really don't feel at your
Right.
best. Yeah,
And
weirdly.
it's funny. My dad will probably shoot me for talking about this, but he's slightly bald on top, and it's funny because
Sure.
it's funny because sometimes he'll say like he doesn't like a picture that I've taken of him with my daughter, and I'm like, but it's a beautiful picture, and he's just like, but he's too shy to say like I don't like it because it's revealing my the baldness too much or something like that.
Right.
And it is amazing how self-conscious we can be. And I mean, do you have men who come in to get their haircut with you? Like in those kind of situations with, it depends, I guess, on the man. Sometimes people have tried to get my dad to do a comb over or, kind of do different things, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's a personal thing that I think that they have to just accept about this is where I'm at, and it's not worth holding yourself back from enjoying your life.
Right.
It's not changing. It's not making your hair grow back. So why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
It's a lot. That's
but
logical.
We're so hard
but
on
obviously
ourselves.
This isn't logical when you feel, of course. Yeah. But I would say, sometimes the comb over almost feels worse because you're saying I'm hiding something, as opposed to just maybe even just going short and just really embracing it, just doing it really close and just, it is what it is.
I know. Kind of.
Yeah. There's a lot of options now.
I don't think baldness is, I don't see it as a problem, but I'm also not a man and I don't have a balding problem. So, I just think,
yeah. Right. You see, it's something that's very common in men is to be balding. And you sometimes think like, what's the big deal? But it's funny. My partner is also very gray, and you think, oh, men distinguish the gray, and oh, they must. But when he sees photos of himself, he's like, oh my God, I look so old. And you just think, wow, I just would never have thought that you thought that way, but he does. He's like, wow, I look,
like, just
I
grow
look
your
really
hair
old,
long. Just grow your hair long. It'll take 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What,
Totally.
I mean, we talked about kind of the hair being kind of undone, that the look, are you, I saw, I subscribe, I guess, to some online magazines or something. So I get news, and one of them is British Vogue. And it said that if you go probably into the article, they list every kind of haircut is the new trend. But I'm always like, what is the new trend? It's everything again. It always makes me laugh.
It's funny. I mean, that's how it is. It's hilarious. I think the last few articles that I went through listed every haircut known to man.
And that's on trend.
It was the new trend. It's sort of like, yeah. No, I think you're right. We do live in a global society now, so it's sort of like it's everywhere. It's whatever's going on in Paris is going on in New York City, is going on in Miami, is going on in LA. So, and these trends are just coming and going. I mean, lightning speed.
Right.
Today it's, this, tomorrow it's something else. I will say that, there are the bob just really constantly pops up on trends because it is such a striking haircut. It's so sharp. It just has such boldness. So I think that always just kind of comes back. The lob as well, which I think in like 2010 kind of hit the scene. And I think it was just a great way for people who wanted the bob but just couldn't commit to going that short. It was like, let's do the lob. I can get that short chic look, but I can still put it in a ponytail.
grow
And if I
out
don't
pretty
like it,
fast. Yeah.
I can grow it out pretty easily. Yeah.
And the middle
So,
part and the side part,
yeah, but I think,
we're on the middle part.
I mean, I still have some young girls who are just allergic to a side part. I mean, they don't want it anywhere near their head. And if I suggest it, they are like, "You're done.
You're like, that's
We're
for
done
old
here."
people.
Well, I will say, if you look at it's it's still here. Whether these young girls like it or not, when you see a little more, when you're trying to get dressed up, when you're going to an event, when you're going to a wedding, the center part is just a
Yes.
little too casual. So if you have a beautiful dress, you're wearing this gorgeous makeup, earrings, and then you have a center part, it really, I think, kind of can, not always, can sometimes be a little casual. So especially if
Right.
you're wearing your hair down. So I don't think I think it's not going to
you
go
can't really
anywhere.
get
It's always
that,
going to
like,
be around.
kind of style design kind of thing into a bun or something like that with a middle part. You'd be kind of funny, or
I mean,
yeah.
you could, you absolutely could. I think
Oh, okay.
Kendall Jenner, she did a
Okay.
lot of that, like, and
Okay.
Hailey Bieber too, a lot of that, like, center part, kind of high bun, low bun,
Yeah.
and it definitely is very chic. But I just think we can't say
Right.
that there's no
Yeah.
side part.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
there's
you.
still room for side
Thank you.
part,
I need a side
always.
part. I don't have that,
Yeah.
asymmetrical
Yeah.
face
Well,
or symmetrical face, excuse me.
Well, that's sort of the thing that I would say about all of this, about trends in general, is that, they're great,
Yeah.
but they're not for everybody. So even when it comes to haircuts and people say, what's the trend? I think it's really about the person, and not every
Yeah.
trend is going to be good for you. So I think that's really, it's more about the individual than, whatever the latest trend is.
And no perms. We're not going back to perms. You never know.
Well, I don't know. Never say never. The perm has really turned into the body wave, which is still here. It's still happening. So, and when they're not too tight, they're great. So I still have a sweet spot
I
for
did
the
so
perm.
many.
I've had
love
several
the
perms in my life.
I tell you, but I have such straight hair that it would be, you'd have to, like, almost fry my hair to get the curl to stay. But when I had them, I loved them because, I love having, like, some body in my hair. I mean, my mom got them all the time, and so it was kind of like perms were just a normal thing. And I mean, I think probably, if they were to ever do a remake of Dirty Dancing, which I hope they never do, or have they? But
Yeah. I don't know.
But
don't
because
ruin
Jennifer
it.
Grey had that, she had the side part with the the body wave, and it was like, don't kill that. Just leave that. That was beautiful, So
yeah.
Oh, there's good memories.
I do love a perm. I think it's it should be
Awesome.
It should be here to stay.
Awesome. Well, it was really nice talking to you. Is there anything else that, because I don't know about the world of salons and hairstyling. Is there anything that I'm missing that that's notable? Or
I think we really covered a lot of it, and I always constantly go back to doing your research and and coming prepared to these consultations, with images. I think are always really great. It just lets your stylist know where you're at, where you're thinking, whether it's color or it's a cut. You're able to really visually explain that. Sometimes as a client, you may not have the right words, so you kind of can't go wrong with an image. Because some people will say, I want to cut my hair short. And you say, short. And they say, oh my God, no, like short, So, it can kind of sometimes people's meanings of
You're
words
like, short
can differ.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh,
short.
That's great. I will just say, okay, so we can do a shout out here to to Sharon Dorham at Sally Hirschberger Salon in New York, and it's still on East 71st Street. And
yes.
And your Instagram, if you want to share it, is that the best way to kind of contact you, or contact you through the salon?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. The Instagram, you can
Yeah.
message me directly. Um, it's
Yeah.
at Jennifer Nast.
2 N's. Yeah.
So yeah, very easy.
Awesome. Well, it was great seeing you.
So good to see you.